Sometimes when I watch The Eminence in Shadow, and by sometimes I mean pretty much all the time, I look at Sid and his actions and I say, wait a gosh darn moment. This boy be breaking all the tropes and cliches. And to be honest, Sid is a bit of a D-bag, and by a bit of a D-bag, I mean a pretty big one. I mean, his entire plan revolves around turning a princess evil, and, well, just all for being the Eminence in Shadow. But you love to watch the guy. But I have to admit, even I am not prepared sometimes for what Sid will do. And it's not even like he necessarily did anything that extreme, but it's the fact that because I've seen so many anime where I see the plot that they're going for, and in this case, pretty much parodying, and everything that happened with him and Rose in that room is actually a legitimately interesting storyline if you take it serious. Like, if you forget about Sid and his nonsense, it's actually an interesting plotline. This love that can never be, being married off to this horrible perv asshat. Even though I feel like people won't agree with me, it's this amazing of a moment, I absolutely love it. This boy, I don't think there's any other way to disrespect the scene more, because you can go more intense, sure, but it's the simplicity of Sid not taking it seriously, probably having a conversation with himself in his head this whole time. Rose is giving out a heartfelt speech, and he's just eating the damn cookies. And it's not even just like he's casually eating the cookies, it's no, he's getting crumbs all over his face, he's getting crumbs all over that couch, and at every possible moment, like grabbing hands, he does not take this bullshit seriously. And the fact that Rose is seeing this as a completely different thing, I'm sorry, that is my favorite moment of Sid so far. At least my favorite moment of season 2 Sid so far. He is atomic, he brings pianos just for dramatic entrance, but the disrespect for what should be a romantic scene is 10 out of 10, and I absolutely recommend. Now, I did a full live reaction to today's hilarious Eminence in Shadow episode over on my Patreon if you would like to see that. Head on over there and it is available. So this was a Sid dominated episode, and Sid's been a little more pushed away recently because Shadow Garden's been kind of taking the driver's seat. They are behind the wheel, and honestly, as I've been saying, the big part of this show working is that it's not a straight up parody. Like, everything with Shadow Garden and what they are building and how they incorrectly observe Shadow, but in return actually uncover these things, allows for the show to have this actually interesting storyline that is actually happening. But then there's Sid, who's just trying to be the Eminence in Shadow and is pure comedy and just deranged. And the idea of giving him more of a spotlight this episode was brilliant, because he ended last week pretty much with Shadow Garden under the assumption that Rose is going to get murdered, she betrayed the guild, and you know what, we can't trust this bitch as far as we can throw her. And what's really happening is he's upset that his master plan of turning this girl into an evil queen for his Eminence in Shadow nonsense went up in smoke, and he's pissed off about it. So the idea of him not really making a dramatic entrance in the way that Shadow comes in, kicks down a door, says, listen here, this is no, it's Sid casually climbing up the goddamn wall, and from her point of view, oh my god, this man who's shown me so much romance, so much passion, who's always there for me, came up. You don't need to say anything, my love. I know exactly. You love me and I'm here for you, but this is forbidden. We can't have this anymore. It's just like, he doesn't need to say a goddamn thing, and he doesn't even understand. We have to remember the fact that Sid doesn't even know the namings, like the number pairings for his members of Shadow Garden. He is completely oblivious to the things happening right in front of him. Do you expect this boy to understand the romance plotline? He's pretty much an incel, we gotta be honest with this. Sid is just like, he'll make these jokes about how much slime content's in the chest, but Sid is like virgin boy, like he probably always will be, we gotta be honest. And I think when you look at that scene in the garden when Rose's maid was pretty much just all over him, the fact that you have this very obese, disgusting guard just kind of all over him, being like, she's mine, this, that, and the third. If Sid just looked even half similar to what that man did, I think almost everything that we see Sid do in this show would be taken in a completely different way. The only reason we pretty much allow half of this nonsense to occur is because he has a good-looking anime character model. But if he was a fat slob, like half of his actions make him out to be, I mean, the scenes would be taken in a completely different light. But goddamn, I keep saying it, Sid is legitimately one of, if not the best isekai characters. He breaks the mold. He's an absolute asshole most of the time, but he is absolutely comedy gold. And the fact that every time these characters can be standing in front of each other, having a conversation, words are being said on both sides, and two different conversations are seemingly happening, and they both think the other understands it. And it's like, we are so deep into this show. And one of my biggest worries early on to the Eminence and Shadow back in season 1, when we were still in the first core, was I could see how this show could grow boring eventually, because if everything about this show is just Sid doing this bullshit, eventually you're gonna run out of steam, or you're gonna feel like you're just trying to out-joke the last one. But I think the biggest thing that made this show work out and become such a masterpiece is that the later portions of the show that we've seen so far have allowed Shadow Garden to keep the plot going. Because if this was just dominated by Sid's point of view, I mean, eventually I'm gonna stop laughing as hard. But they removed him for a good chunk of the second half of this core here. And because we haven't seen as much with him, I mean, he's had funny moments and he's had badass moments in season 2, don't get it twisted. But by, leaving the viewers wanting more of Sid, having an episode like this come in, where he's eating cookies and breaking apart the love tropes in front of our eyes to the point that it's not even after that, he sits outside that window. This poor girl is getting strangled by the worst character. He's eating his fucking cookies and saying, oh, was this supposed to be the wedding ring? Maybe I shouldn't have took it from Perv. No, you should take it from Perv Ass Hat. You don't even realize that that ring's so important from the ritual in the previous episode. But he's not worried about Ro. He's worried about maybe I messed with my boy Perv Ass Hat. And I'm like, Sid, you dumb How? How is this show so good? It is so funny while seemingly building a really interesting plot line. Round of applause for this episode. Legitimately one of the most entertaining of this Eminence and Shadow season, and it's not even close. Like, sometimes I feel flabbergasted when I watch this show, but it's just so good. It's remained consistent. Like, honestly, seriously, I went back and watched a couple of episodes of season 1 not too long ago, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, just because I was kind of curious, because the season 2 turnaround was actually pretty short, all things considered. And I was wondering, I was like, well, they just did a 2-core. Is the production, gonna be a little more inconsistent? But this, I mean, it helps because they just went from season 1 to season 2 with the same team, but it's legitimately good. I mean, in a sea of anime productions crashing and burning, this show is consistent. Like, from episode 1 now all the way to here, it's been more consistent than I've seen most series do, especially for having not too many months in between cores. I love this show. It's definitely one of my personal favorite Isekais. Sid is one of my personal favorite Isekai MCs, but I think he's a goddamn idiot and half the time is cruel as hell, but that's why I watch this. Shadow Garden's here for the plot, Sid's here for the nonsense. Round of applause. Fantastic episode. Thoughts and feelings yourself down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new around here. Ring that bell, of course. And hey, like I mentioned, we have full live reactions over on my Patreon. And while you're over there, you'll also get a video shout out. Alright, so today we have JD, Thor Linsgard, Vey, Anthony Silva, Carry Me, Mac Vale, and Christopher Stevenson. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care and have a good one.